Hey guys, welcome to a new series of this channel. Now, this series is particularly focused on AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional Examination. And I'll be releasing more videos into this playlist or this series. And the main intention for me to create this series is to give you guys more hands-on experience and also more demos about certain services that will be often questioned in this particular examination. Now, this Certified Solution Architect Professional Examination is one of the difficult examinations out there, and you should have a very good hands-on experience prior to facing this examination, because unlike other associate level or the practitioner exam, this exam really tests your knowledge on AWS architecture, different services, and how they all work together to create scalable, secure, and high performing application architectures on AWS. So that's why I particularly focused on creating this series. So I'm not going to cover everything for the exam, but I like to focus on some of the key services that is often questioned in this certification. So let's get started with the first service I'd like to discuss with you today, and that is AWS Organization. So how I'm planning to do is I'll give you a couple of slides, information about what this service is, and then I'll do a lot of demos. So that's the main focus of this series really. And after that, I will walk you through more slides on some important points that you should remember if you are taking this examination. So let's get started. Okay guys, so before we start, I want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors for this video, and that is nothing but Dynobase. Now, Dynobase provides a professional GUI client for DynamoDB. So if you guys have an application that is running on DynamoDB, you should definitely check this out. I'll put a link into the description so you can learn more about Dynobase, and they are providing a lot of features that make your DynamoDB workflows quite easy. And guys, not just me, but many AWS DynamoDB experts have recommended their tool, so definitely check this out. So let's get back to our video. So what is covered in the demos, guys? Now there are lots we are going to cover in this video. Now these are some of those things. We are going to create and manage AWS accounts and organizational units with AWS Organizations. Then we will see SCPs or service control policies in actions. And we will have demos, how to prohibit root use API actions, and also how can we prevent member accounts from leaving the organization. And then we'll learn about tag policies and how to create them, and then how to use them in conjunction with resource groups. There are lots here as well. And then we will learn about AWS Organization and other AWS services like CloudTrail, AWS Config, and so on. And then we are also going to learn about AWS single sign-on and how we can get users who are not in your AWS IAM and get them to log into your AWS organization account through single sign-on. So this is definitely an interesting demo. And then finally, towards the end, we are also going to look at how we can share reserved instances and saving plan discounts with your AWS organizational accounts. And also, last but not least, we will learn about Cloudformation StackSets and how we can deploy resources in multiple AWS accounts in your AWS organizations very easily using Cloudformation StackSets. Okay, so what really is AWS Organization, guys? So what it is? So AWS Organization really helps you to centrally manage and govern your AWS accounts. Now, usually when we are when we start using AWS in our projects, we tend to have multiple AWS accounts. And in fact, that's one of the good practice to have multiple AWS accounts to segregate your resources in terms of the project, the environment, or the business unit, and so on. It's not advised to use single account to deploy different environment resources, because it's one thing is hard to manage, and if you want to manage access to those resources, that is getting increasingly difficult if you have all those resources in one account. And also there are AWS service limits. So if you have all your resources in one account, you probably will reach those service limits quite fast. And some of these limits are not soft limits; those are hard limits. That means you can't increase after support request to AWS. But soft limits, of course, you can. But all in all, it is advised to have these resources segregated to different accounts in a way that makes sense to your company or your project really. So AWS Organization is one of the key service that would help you to do that, and in fact it will help you to centrally manage all of those AWS accounts. So AWS Organization is a managed service. So that means you don't have to manage this service. It's managed for you by AWS. But you can use that service to create an organization in the first place. And the AWS account that you will create this AWS organization is typically called as a master account. So that is the master account. And once you create that organization, then you can connect multiple AWS accounts in your company or in your project. And that is done by either creating new accounts from AWS Organization Console, or you can even invite some of these existing AWS accounts that you already have. And in fact, it's not about creating AWS accounts and connecting to the organizations directly. You can create organizational units. For example, let's say you have multiple projects. So probably a way that you would choose to create your organizational structure is the project wise. So you have the root, and underneath that you have the project A, project B, and project C. So that's the organizational unit. And underneath that organizational unit, you will have production AWS account for project A, development AWS account for project A, and so on. So it's really up to you to do this categorization and do this structure as you prefer and as it makes sense to your company or the project. So and in fact, once you have AWS organization, you can choose two modes. One mode is full feature mode or all feature mode, and the other one is consolidated billing mode. If you are in the consolidated billing mode, that means you can't manage the rest of the accounts in your organization. You can't enforce different rules and so on. You can only get a consolidated bill for all of those accounts into your master account. So that's first mode, right? So that's the consolidated billing mode. Or else you can use the all feature mode. That means you get both consolidated billing as well as you are able to now manage those AWS accounts in your organization. How you do that? Well, there are different types of policies. Now, one of those policies is SCP, service control policies, and there are more policies. You can have type policies, backup policies, and you can use these different policies to enforce different behaviors in your AWS organizations. All the accounts that is under your AWS organization. Okay, so we talked about SCPs, and here are some points that you should remember. So SCPs are policies. I think you're already familiar with IAM policies, or identity and access management policies. Now, if you are confined to one AWS account and you don't have an AWS organization, you mostly work with IAM policies. You have a root user who created this account, and then that root user will create IAM users, and for those users you will create IAM permission policies, and also you will create IAM roles, and you will assign those policies to the roles, and you can also assign these policies to the IAM users directly, right? So I hope you are familiar with IAM permissions. IAM permissions is all about granting you more privileges or denying you some privileges. But unlike that, SCPs do not grant permissions. Right? What it does is it will set up what is the maximum permissions allowed for a particular organizational unit or an AWS account. Right? So if you are a little bit confused right now about OUs and accounts, don't worry, I will show you in the demo. I think just after the next slide. So yeah, so SCPs do not grant additional permissions. It's only said, okay, these are the maximum amount of permission you have for this account or OU, right? So it will filter a lot of permissions and then assign only the necessary permission for that particular OU or an account. And there are two types of strategies when you're assigning SCPs. So first strategy is called deny list strategy. Okay, so this is the deny list strategy. So this is basically you allow all the privileges, all the permissions, at the beginning, right? But you will start adding restrictions for certain permissions. I'll show you a quick example in the next slide. And then the other one is allow list strategy. That means you do not provide any access to any services at the beginning, but case by case you will add permission to certain resources on that OU or the account. So usually this is the default strategy that is being used at AWS Organization. You can opt into allow list as well. So this deny list is more permissive strategy. That means you are given all the permissions, but it's kind of a backlisting, whatever the permission that you do not really need. Allow list is again on the other side, it's kind of a whitelist strategy. So let me show you two examples. So this is the deny list example. Now by default, AWS Organization comes with this manage SCP or this default SCP, I would say, that's called full AWS access. So what it does is it will allow all the permission that is available in AWS for all the OUs and accounts. So this permission, it's pretty much similar to an IAM policy, right? You have the version, you have the statements, and this statement says allow everything, all the actions for all the resources. And now when it comes to deny list strategy, you will have this. If you want to deny certain resource access to a certain OU or an account, what you will do is you will add that into this permission policy or into this SCP. So here, have a look at this. So here you will allow everything, but you also add a deny statement. Say okay, deny DynamoDB, and the effect is deny. So you deny all the access to DynamoDB, right? DynamoDB wildcard star, that means all the actions for DynamoDB for all the resources. When you apply this to an OU or a account, then they will have access to everything else, but not DynamoDB. Okay, not even for the root user, guys. So that's a very important thing. We'll have a look at it during our demos. And then this is the allow list example or the whitelisting example. Here you can see we are only selecting the services that we want to provide access to for a certain OU or an account. Here I want to allow all EC2 actions and all CloudWatch actions to all the resources in that particular OU or AWS account. But you can see we don't have that wildcard allow for everything. So this is only allowing these two, everything else is denied, implicitly denied. So unless you explicitly allow those, everything else is denied for that particular account, even to the root user. Okay, I think that should do for the theory for the first part of this. And let's have a look at some demos so you will have clear understanding. So let me log into AWS console. So right now I am logged in as an IAM user called Manoj into this account, and this user has administration privileges. And now if I just click on here, I can see the option My Organization. Now this is the organization I'm going to create my organization, AWS organization, right? This is the account, sorry. This is the account that I'm going to create my organization. So this becomes my master accounts automatically. So if I click My Organization, now I've already enabled my AWS organization for this account, so you wouldn't see this screen at once if you haven't enabled it. In fact, you will see a enabled or create AWS organization button, which you have to click on it. So yeah, so it's loaded, and as you can see, I've already enabled AWS organization. I created an account, and I in fact went ahead and create some OUs and accounts in my organization. Now when you create an organization, there's this root level. So this is the root of our organization, and in the root you will have your master account, or this is the management account, the account that I created the organization. So this is on top, right? And then underneath the root you can start creating OUs, or we can add direct AWS accounts as well. So let me show you how to do that. These UIs could change time to time. This is not the UI which was there a few months ago, but they have updated it. So you can see the list view, or you can see the hierarchical view. Hierarchical view, I think, makes more sense, since this is kind of hierarchical structure. Alright, so let's go ahead and create one more AWS account and then add it into a organizational unit. I'll show you how to do that. So first and foremost, you can go ahead and click add an AWS account right here, and when you click on it, you will be presented with two options. One is either you can create an AWS account from AWS organization, or if you already have an account, then you can invite it. Now if you are going ahead with the invitation process, as you can see, you need to add the account ID or the email address of that particular account, and then you can add a message, and then you can send an invitation. Then this invitation gets sent out to that account. So when they go to AWS organization from this invited account, then they will see the invitation. Now here also there's this list of invitation. If you go here, then you will see the invitation, not you, basically the person who is in the other account, and then he can accept it or reject it. Now this accepting process is very important, guys, because you are planning to now enforce some rules from your organization to that invited account. So the invited account has to accept that. So if it doesn't accept it, then you can't force any rules or anything as such. So the invitation process, so it's straightforward. But on the other hand, you can go ahead and create a new account. Now, the advantage of creating accounts in this manner is that you don't have to provide any billing information. You don't have to link a credit card or a debit card, in that matter, for billing aspects. You can just create an account. And there's one other thing on the same note. Once you have an account created and associated with the AWS organization, then that account cannot leave the organization unless they will provide some proper billing information. So they have to link a credit card, because now it's going to act as a standalone or an individual account, so it needs to handle its own costs, so that AWS is required to enter billing information. That's something we'll discuss a little later, but let's go ahead and create an account. So we can give it a name. In fact, I'll call it not just sandbox, but I'll just call it YouTube sandbox, right? So let's say this is the account that I want to do any testing before I release any YouTube videos, and I can give it an email address. So this is basically the root user's email address. So I'll go ahead and create a 10 minutes email. So I'll just copy that and paste it here. And there's this IAM role, guys. Now this IAM role, guys, is used by the management account, or this master account, the account that I have created, the AWS organization, to access the new account and access the resources in that account, really. So you can name it differently, but AWS advice, okay, just keep the same name as is. so that when you are creating more accounts, you don't have to remember this role name separately. Because this role name can be used to activate this switch account functionality. I'll show you in a bit. So we'll keep the name as is, and you can give it a tag. So I'll give it a name. This is my YouTube sandbox. And then I'll go ahead and create the account. So as you can see, it is added under root, right? But I don't want to add it under root. I want to create an organizational unit under another organizational unit. So as you see right now under root, I have two organizational units, courses and others, right? So organization units are basically to organize stuff, organize your AWS account, and in fact you can attach permission policies, so the SCPs, at the OU level or the root level in such a way that those SCPs propagated to its child OUs and accounts. I'll show you that as well. But let's say I wanted to create this, create a new OU for the sandbox under my courses OU, and there's another OU called community, and underneath that I have YouTube. But I want to create another sandbox under courses. Let's say I'll check here, and then I'll click actions and add or create new organizational unit. You can give it a name, YouTube sandbox. I just call it sandbox. That should do. Create OU. So it's a logical fold, I would say. And here now if I expand this, I will see the sandbox. Now I need to move this YouTube sandbox AWS account I just created into this. So how can I do that? I'll just select it one more time, this time the account itself. Go to actions and click move. And then I will select where do I need to move it. Okay, I'll just select this sandbox OU. There's nothing in it at the moment, so I'll select the OU itself, and then I'll click move AWS account. Perfect. So now it's no longer in the root level, but if I now open courses OU and sandbox OU, then I'll see that account here. And now let's try to access this account, guys. Now there are two ways that you can access this newly created account from your organizational structure. Actually, there are three ways, right? Number one is you can log into this account directly as a root user. But you'd be wondering, hey, I just created the account, but I did not add any password or anything as such. So that's where, guys, we can use the forget password flow. So let me show you how to do that. I'll just copy this AWS account ID. I'll copy this, and then I'll take a new browser window, and I'll go to AWS Amazon.com, and then I'll select root user, and at the root user email, well, I would have copied this one instead. And now it's asking me to add the password, but I don't have a password. So this is where I will use the forget password flow. Again, I need to enter some numbers, send email. Okay, the password is being sent. Now if you look at it, then I will see the password assistance email. Now if I open this up, I have a link to reset my password. So I'll click on this link. If I can, or else I just copy this and here I'll paste it in that incognito window. Then I can add a new password. Reset password. Okay, password is successful. So now I am logging as the root user here, guys, which is this one. So I'll use the password. Well, now I'm able to log into that newly created account as the root user. So okay, now I can actually go ahead and create my IAM users if I need. I will go to IAM maybe. But here guys, it's not advised to use the root user to create users or do any API actions or create any resources in an AWS account, because the root user he theoretically has unlimited privileges in that account. But here in our case, since this is part of our AWS organization, we can enforce some rules to the root user as well. But typically the root user has all the privileges for an AWS account. So it's always advised to create a IAM user, and through that user you can go ahead and provision other resources. So that's why I'm not going to use this method. I will just sign out from this account, and I'll show you a different way where you can log into this particular account from the AWS organization main account or the master account, the management account. So what I can do here guys, I can use switch role feature, switch account feature in fact. Now here I'm logged in as a Manoj, as an admin into this master or the management account, and I can click here, then I can click switch roles. Now I would need the account ID, so let me cancel out and get the account ID for that account. Go to courses, OU, and sandbox. And this is the account ID. Now paste this one, and the role is this one, I think, organizational account access role. So this is that default role I've been talking about. Then I can give it a name as well. So I will just say YouTube sandbox, right? And I can pick a color, this kind of a label that will appear on top of the toolbar. Then I'll click switch role. Now this is straightforward guys, and you can easily switch between accounts, between your master account and any other accounts in your AWS organization. Okay, now I can see it's the label YouTube sandbox, and I can click here one more time and go back to Manoj. This is my master account, so I can easily switch between accounts here. So what I will do after this, in my YouTube sandbox account, I'll go ahead and create an IAM user. Now if you are wondering which is this, now if you are anyway wondering who is this user, like who logged into this new account, well, it is really the role that I previously set, or we previously created, is been assumed as the user and logged into this account, and I'll show you that as well. Now if I go to services and I go to IAM, now here if I go to the roles section, and I should see that organizational account access role which was created through the management account at the creation of this account, right? So if I just open this up, yeah, so this role has administrator access by default. So when I do the switch role from the master account to this account, it will assume this role, and then it has full access to this the new account. Okay, so now let's go ahead and create a IAM user with administration permission, because we are going to add some SCPs or service control policies to prevent certain actions for root user, because we don't want root users to create any resources or anything as such. So we'll see it in a bit, but before that, let's create an IAM user. So I'll go ahead and create an IAM user or add user here. I'll call this user sandbox. I will give him both the password, the CLI access as well as management control access. Next permission. I'll attach an existing policy directly. Now for this user, let me select administrator permission, administrator access, and click next tags. I would add a tag, and I'll create the user. And now I can use this link to access this console, but let me just close down this. So my user is created, but I'll go to dashboard and then customize the login URL just a little bit. So I'll create an alias. So I click alias and run YouTube sandbox and save. Okay. So I can use this link for this user to log in as this user. And now let's log in with that user, and I'll use the other AWS console in the incognito window which I opened previously. Click sign in, and this time I'm logged in as a IAM user, not the root user. So I'll click here, and the account ID I can just say YouTube sandbox and the password, and I'll log in. Now guys, remember this user has admin permission, right? So what he can do now is actually go to his organization, like there's this organization link in this account as well, but now let's see what do we see when we go in it. Well, he doesn't see any other policies or any other options, but he sees the dashboard and he sees the options to leave this organization as well, right? So what happens if I click leave this organization? Well, then you are getting a prompt. Now, after you left the organization, you are responsible for paying your own bill. Therefore, you need to set up all your billing information. So that's when you click leave organization, you need to complete the account setting up steps, which include setting up an organization. But still again, if you properly set it up, this user can or that this account can leave our organization. But sometimes we don't want to do that, right? We don't want anyone with the admin permission or even for the root users to do this action. Right? So how do we prevent that? So that's why we are going to use our first SCP to prevent this action from happening. So I'll go to my other browser window and I'll go back to my management account, back to Manoj. Click here and go to my organization one more time, because when you're switching account, if you're in a different place, the same place will be tried to load even after you switch it to a different account. That's why I had to go back to this organization place. So now I will go to the policies. I'll go ahead and create a service control policy. Make sure it's enabled. If not, click here and enable it. It should be available because we are at full feature mode. Now I have a couple of policies already created, right? So this time I'm going to create a new policy and let's call it restrict leaving organization, right? So this will restrict our member accounts to leave our organizations, and here we need to define our policy in JSON. So there's this neat little helper where you can use to create your policy, but I'll paste already created policies in the interest of time. There you go. So SCPs also have a version and the list of statements. So the statement that I have added is a deny statement. Okay, so it's deny leaving the organization. Now this is the API call in AWS Organization service, and we are denying it for all the service, all the resources really. Now we are going to attach this SCP into our member accounts. So let's first go ahead and create it, and I'll show you how we can do the attachment. So here's our SCP. Now what I can do is I can go back to my AWS account section and view my hierarchy. So I need to add this policy or enforce this policy to all my member accounts. Now here's how we can do this. Now I can either go one by one. For example, I can go to Sandbox OU and go into my AWS account, YouTube Sandbox, and click Action. Oh no, I think I have to go into it. And then I can go to the policies section here. And then I can go to the SCPs or service control policies and find the SCP. It is not here under the applied policies. So what I can do is I can click attach and then select this policy and attach it. So this should work. I mean, there's no problem at all. But now they are directly attaching this SCP to the AWS account. We can make use of the hierarchical structure to make our lives a little bit more easy. So let me go into the root level one more time. So this is our root structure. I will go to the previous screen. So this is our root. Now if I apply an SCP at an OU, right, let's say in this course OU, then that get propagated to all its children. That means this OU and this YouTube, and also this OU, the Sandbox OU, and the YouTube Sandbox, and also there's this another account directly attached to this OU as well. So it will be attached to this account. So I think that is what I want. And in fact, now let's imagine I want to attach that policy to everything else except for the accounts in this other OU. I don't want to like enforce anything for that. But these are my business critical applications or the business critical accounts and OUs. I need to apply that SCP to that. So what I'll do is I'll select, check this, right? This courses OU. I'll go to actions. No, I think I need to go into it. And then I'll go to the policies. Again, I can see all its children one more time. Go to policies. And then I'll click attach. And then I'll click restrict leaving organizational policy. I'll attach it. Now this OU, courses OU, has this policy attached, restrict leaving organization. But if you go into its children, now let's say I'll go into the Sandbox and I'll select the account, YouTube account, and I'll view the policies list one more time. Then I should see that restrict leaving organization SCP is attached to here as well, and that has been inherited from the courses OU. Okay. Now here's the thing, guys. Now this is a deny policy, right? Now we attach a deny policy at this courses level. Now let's say we already have this allow policy because we are using this deny list strategy. So we have this all allow policy. Now if I go to the policies at the root level, you should see there's this full AWS access policies attached, right? Although this is attached at the root level and that get propagated to all its children, as long as we have a deny policy attached to a certain account directly or any OUs above it, then that action is denied, because in AWS denies are highly prioritized. So if you have a deny, explicit deny, no matter you have an explicit allow, that deny get prioritized. That is something you should remember. Okay, now let's see this in action. So I'll go into my other browser, refresh here. Now here if I try to leave this organization one more time, it asks this question whether I need to leave the organization. I click leave organization. Then I get a message, you don't have permission to access this resource, because we explicitly deny leave organization API method using our SCPs. Okay guys, I hope it's clear. Now the next thing I wanted to add is another SCP. So let's add another SCP blocking all the root users of our member accounts to do certain actions that we don't want. Okay, because we want to enforce these best practices. We want to enforce these member accounts not to use root user to do these certain things. If you want, just create IAM users. All right. So how we can do that? I'll go back to my management account. I'll go back to the services one more time. Let's create one more SCPs. Now the services, actually I need to go to the policies here. I'll click service control policies, create policy, and let's call it prohibit root user EC2. So we are prohibiting root users to spin up any EC2 instances. I can use this right side section to construct my SCP. So let's in fact do that. So the action I want to do is EC2. Well, it's the EC2 instance, and I will select all action. As you can see, the left side get updated as and when I am doing selections here. Now EC2 colon star, the wildcard is there. If I scroll down, now I can add a resource. Now I'll apply it to all resources. So click here and select all resources. Okay, so it is also updated here, and I'll add a condition now. So this is the condition I will set. This should be applied only for the root user. So the condition key is the principal ARN. Principal ARN for all the values in the request, string like operator. And as for the values, I'll just type the ARN of the root user. It's ARN colon AWS colon IAM, and we'll use all the regions, and this is the root user. Okay, so we are using this principal ARN condition key and using the string like operator to check whether if this is the root user. Then I'll add the condition. Okay, so then I'll create the policy. So the policy is created right here. Then I'll attach it to my sandbox environment, YouTube sandbox AWS account. So this time I'll attach it directly to the AWS account. Okay, so I'll go to this courses OU sandbox and select the YouTube sandbox, policies, attach policy, prohibit root EC2 and attach it. Okay, now this is only getting applied to that particular AWS account. So let's try that out. So I'll log out from the other browser window and let's try to log in as the root user one more time. Okay, email address, I'll log in. Okay, now I am logged in as the root user. So I'll go to EC2 console. And here we go, I get this API error. So even though I logged in as the root user, I can't do anything, right? But if you logged in as the IAM user, then this shouldn't be a problem. Let me show you that as well, because I want this to be very comprehensive and you shouldn't have any doubts on how these things works. Sign in, IAM user, YouTube sandbox, this is the IAM user we created previously. Now I'm logged in as the sandbox user, so I'll go to EC2. Now do you see I don't see that API error message? That means I can simply go ahead and launch instances. Alright guys, so next we are going to look at tag policies. Now in the organizational dashboard, you can see there are various types of policies, and we have already looked at service control policies, and I think you have a good understanding about it right now. And there are backup policies in addition to service control policies, as well as we have tag policies. Now tag policies, as it says, it helps you standardize tags on all the tag resources across your organization. So you can define if you are using this particular tag name, and these are the allowed values that you should use. And also you can enforce to use certain values for certain tag names. I'll show you exactly how to do that. Now if you go to tag policies, first thing you need to do is to enable it. So I already enabled it. There should be a button right over here just to enable that. And then you can go ahead and create your tag policy. Now let me show you one of the tag policies that we can create. So usually you can give it a name. I'll just give it a test name because I already have a tag policy created for you, but I like to show you the visual editor that you will see when you are creating these tags, right? So yeah, I think this visual editor is really easy to use. You can just give it a name. Now this is the tag name. For example, this could be, let's say, team. Okay, and then you can check whether we should consider about the capitalization. For example, I can say project team, right, where the P and T is capital, right? So then if you enable it, then enforce this capitalization. I just simply say team, and I'll enable capitalization as well. And then I can, in addition to the name, I can add what are the allow values for this particular tag. If you check this, then I can specify the values. For team, what allowed values are available, and I can say team A, I'll add that, and I will say team B is also another allowed value, and also team C. Okay, and then I'll do the save changes. And this is important now, resource type to enforce. Now there's this check to prevent non-compliant operation for this tag. So let's go ahead and enable it, right? And then I can select, what resources should we enforce this, right? So these are the enforcement detail. So you can easily click specify resource types. For example, let's say when you are creating a DynamoDB table, I want to enforce to select one of these team names if they are using team tag name. Okay, so what I can do is I can just search for, let's say, DynamoDB, and there are different resources that is available for you to select from. And there we go. So I can just select this, so that will be applied to all the DynamoDB actions. Okay, so this could include creating DynamoDB table and so on. I'm not going to save the changes. I'm going to cancel this out because I already have a tag policy created. Let me go back to the policies and tag policies. So this is the tag policy that I have already created. That's the project tag policy. And as you can see, once you create a tag policy, it has its own structure, JSON definition. You have the tags and then the tag name, allowed values for the project tag, and the enforcement. So here also I'm enforcing all the DynamoDB actions. Now let me edit this policy and show you one more time. So I added the tag policy as tag project tag required, and this is the tag key, that's the project, and I'm using capitalization. That means this capital P is required, and these are the allowed values, project A, B, and C. Yeah, and I'm applying it to all DynamoDB actions. Now you need to be a little bit careful when you're selecting this prevent non-compliant operation for this tag, because you may be preventing some actions for an entire account, right? So always create one of the tag policies and test it on one of your test accounts, right? So let me show you this one, okay? And this policy is called project tag required policy, and I'll go to my AWS hierarchy, and I'll pick one of the accounts. And actually I choose the sandbox account we have already created, and this is the sandbox account. And I'll go into the AWS account that is inside this organization init, and I'll go to the policies section, and so these are the SCPs, service control policies. What you need to go is to this section, that is the tag policies, and I can see there's no any tag policy applied right now, but I'm going to apply one. So I'll click attach, and this is the only tag policy I have. Then I select it, and then I'll attach the policy. Great. So it is now attached. It's going to take a few moments, but hopefully, let's see, it is updated. So I'll go to my YouTube sandbox by doing the switch role. Okay, now I will go to DynamoDB, because that is the resource I attached as non-compliant if the proper tag values are not there. So let me search for DynamoDB. Okay, here in the DynamoDB console I can start or create a table. So I'll click create table right here. Can give it a name, just say test. I have to define a partition key. I will just define a general partition key like pk, not specifying a sort key or anything. But look what happened. Now if I just wanted to use that project key, let's say I'll use project, okay, but I will add a different value. So let's say hello. Now this value is not within that allowed value list in the organizational tag policy. So I'll try to create the table, and look at this error message. One or more parameters values were invalid. The tag policy does not allow the specified value for the following tag key project. So if you are using project, then you have to use either project A value or project B or project C. So I'll use project A, alright, and then I'll create it. Now this should let me create the table without any problem. Let's see. There we go. So the table is being created. Now with this, you can tag whatever the resource that are belonging to project A with the key name project and the value with the project A. And after that, what you can do very easily is to create a resource group. You can just search for resource group. So this is a resource groups and tag editor. I'll go ahead and create a new resource group. So my group is based out of tags, so this is tag based. Now inside the grouping criteria, I can search for the tag. Let's say this is the project tag, and it is already showing it in the drop down, right? Because we use this project tab. And then I can again see what are the values I've added to this project. So it shows me in the drop down the project A has been added as the value for this key, and then I can just add that. Okay, so this is the grouping criteria. So then I can see what are the resources that belongs to this project key and the value project A. So I can just preview the group resources, and here we go. So I see the DynamoDB table, the test table that I created, and all that information. So I can group it based out of these tags. I can give it a name, group A, and I'll create it. Now guys, I think these tag policies are super useful because when you have different organizational units and so many AWS accounts and so many teams, you would want to know more details about how each teams uses AWS resources in terms of costs and in terms of access control and so on. So if you have proper tagging mechanism and everyone is enforced to use the similar standard when it comes to tagging, these things are really easy. For example, you can create some cost allocation tags and drill down cost for certain projects, teams, and so on. And you can use attribute based access control, or ABAC, I believe. And in AWS, these attributes are tags. So you can create IAM policies, and in the IAM policy conditions, you can define, okay, only the people or only the resources with this tag can have access to this certain resource and so on. So you can do these granular permissions with attribute based access control. So all in all, these tag policies are really super useful. So make sure you guys use them. Okay guys, so as the next thing, I would like to talk about another way that you can access your AWS organization. Now I talked about you can access your an account that was created through AWS organization through the root user access, or you can do the switch account thing, right? And also you can use AWS SSO, or single sign-on. So let's have a look at how to do that. So I'm back at the management account and I'm at the AWS organization section. Well, if you go to the SSO service, so this time I'm not going to do it from the AWS organization console, but I will go to AWS single sign-on console. So let me select this AWS single sign-on. Now guys, in AWS single sign-on or AWS SSO, you will get an user portal URL. Now this is the user portal URL, and I can give this URL to any users who I want to have access to my AWS organizational accounts. And for that, these users are not required to be my IAM users. I can designate a separate user store or identity store, and in fact the AWS single sign-on itself acts as an identity store. Now let me show you that first. First, as you can see, number one, or the first step, is to choose my identity store. So if you click on it, then I can change the identity source. Now the default one is AWS SSO itself. If you click change, then you can either select even an Active Directory, right? AWS Manage Active Directory, or it could be an external provider as well, right? So I think for this demo we can use the AWS SSO itself because it's pretty straightforward. So I'll leave it as it is and I'll cancel out, and I can customize the user portal URL. Now I can go to the users section, and this is the place where we'll create the users in this SSO user store, right? Now these users do not necessarily have to be IAM users. We can actually create any user. If you just click add user here, you can give it a username, password, email address, and then confirm email address, and then you can simply create some users, right? And I've created a couple of users there, so I'll use this user, Manoj Fernando. Still again it's the username Manoj. And let me go back to the dashboard one more time. What would be the second step? Yeah, the second step is to manage SSO or single sign-on access to your AWS account. So I can use AWS organization at this point. Now, for example, now if I go to this AWS account tab here on the left side, under the AWS organization tab, I can see my all accounts, right? Now these are all of my accounts. But I want to see the the organizational, that hierarchy menu. So for that, you can just select this one and I can expand upon it. Now do you see these are my two organizational unit underneath it? So I'll further drill down into this organizational unit. That's a sandbox, and inside this sandbox, if I select it, I should see my sandbox AWS account right here. Okay, so I'll select this one. So this is the AWS account I I want these AWS SSO users to log into. Okay, and I will click assign users, and then I'll select this user, username Manoj, and I'll click next for the permission sets. Now I can define, what permission do these users have when they log in through single sign-on. I can create a new permission set, and there basically you can select from one of these manage permission policies. But I have selected, and I have already created a permission set for power user access, so I'll select that one. You can always click here and then create your own permission set beforehand, and then I'll click finish. So it's going to take a little bit of time. Oh no, it's already completed. Pretty nice. Okay, it seems like it's completed, and I will click finish. So we can actually now test that out. So ideally now I can give the portal URL to the users that I'm managing in my identity store, and then they can use their username, password to log into the portal, and thereby they can access to the AWS organization account that I have assigned there. I now at the moment I have assigned only the sandbox account, so let's check that. So I'll click here, that will open the portal URL. Okay, so this is my portal, and as you can see, this is different to AWS console login. Now here I will use the user name for Manoj, and also the password I set up previously. Now I am logged into the SSO console. You see, I have access to 2 AWS accounts. I think previously I have given this user the access to another AWS account as well, but in your case, like if you're following along, you will see only one AWS account if you provide access through the single sign-on. So here I will click this, then I see, okay, I'm assigned the power user access, so I can directly click management console, which get me directly logged into the AWS management console for YouTube sandbox account with power user access. So with single sign I don't have to again log in. It is only one time login, and then afterwards you don't have to log in anymore. Okay, perfect. So this is successful. Alright, the login is successful. Have a look at the top bar here, AWS reserved SSO power user. I think it has a this long name. Now I want to show you one thing. I have given this user the power user access. That means this user have permission to do a lot of things except the IAM related, the user management related stuff. So if you go to IAM, I should see a bunch of error messages. Here we go, you don't have the permission to perform this action. Okay, so I'm back at my AWS organization. There are a couple other things I want to demo before I wrap up this video. So that is about the ability to connect with other AWS services through AWS organization and enforce different services on your other AWS accounts in the organization as well. So let me go to the service section. And here you will see a bunch of services that has integration with AWS organization. For example, CloudTrail, Config, Directory Services, RAM, and so on. Now we can use these services to enforce certain things in your AWS organization across accounts. So how we can do that? I will try to use CloudTrail. So you can go into this and set this up. Now here guys, it is always recommended to go into the service console. That means I can go to the CloudTrail console and then connect to AWS organization from there, not probably from organization to CloudTrail. You can read as to why you should do that here in the show more. But let's go ahead and enable CloudTrail integration with the AWS organization from CloudTrail console. So I'll go to the CloudTrail console by clicking onto that link. You can see it opens up the CloudTrail. Now in AWS CloudTrail, I can go ahead and create a trail. You can use CloudTrail if you want to log all the API calls in all of your AWS account into a one centralized place, and then observe for different anomalies or any activities that you want to observe for really in that centralized place. So this is where this AWS organization and CloudTrail integration comes in handy. So let me show you that. So I can add a trail name. I don't know, I just say test trail. And here there's a check. Now I can enable all accounts in my organization. This is the integration part, all right? So I can click here. That means then CloudTrail is enabled for all the accounts in my organization. Okay. And then what I can do is I can create a new S3 bucket, can give it a name, and then you can click next. You need to give a name for the KMS, test KMS key, and I'll click next. Now I can pick what type of logs do I need to ship it to that S3 bucket. Is it only management logs, data events, insight? So you can pick whatever the events that you want to port it to that S3 location. Click next and have a look. This is a multi-region trail, and also it applies to all the AWS organization accounts. I'm not going to create that, but you can go ahead and create it and see. There could be some cost involved in this, so be careful on that. I'll cancel this out. I just want to show you how we can integrate other AWS services with AWS organization. All right. So similarly, guys, you can use AWS config. You can track all the configuration changes to your AWS resources over the accounts in your AWS organization. That is also pretty much the similar process. So that's one other thing I want to demo to you. And then I'd like to show you how you can use reserved instances and saving plans discounts shared across your AWS organization. So let me show you that real quick. Now here also you need to go into the billing section of your master account or the management account. So you can click here. So I'm logged in as an admin user, and then I'll go to my billing dashboard. Now in the billing dashboard, I can go to the billing preferences right here under the preferences section. And then I should see RIN saving plans discount sharing. All right. So here we can control how RIN reserved instance and saving plans discounts are shared between accounts. So if you expand this section, then you should see all the accounts, right? So now by default, all the accounts in my AWS organizations have the RIN saving plan discount shared, and there's none which this option is disabled. So let's say I don't want to have this RI or saving plan discount enabled. Let's say I select this one, YouTube Sandbox, and I'll add it to this list. That means any reserved instance discounts or saving plan discount will not be applied to this Sandbox account. So the quick thing, I just want to show you how you do that. And finally, guys, I'd like to wind up this video with one other feature that is provided by AWS Organization. And guys, this is about using AWS Cloudformation StackSets to deploy Cloudformation stacks across your AWS organization accounts in maybe multiple regions as well. So this is really straightforward. And if you again go to the services section, you should see the Cloudformation StackSet. So I'll click here and then I'll enable the trusted access. And again, they recommend to enable the trusted access using the Cloudformation StackSets console. So let's do that. In fact, right? I'll go to the Cloudformation StackSets or the Cloudformation console in the master account or the management account. Now it has automatically selected the StackSets section. Now here's the button which I can click to enable trust access. So I'll click here. Okay, it is successfully now enabled. Now I can go ahead and create a stack set. Now let's assume like I want to create an IAM role, and that IAM role need to be created in all the AWS accounts in my AWS organization. So let's say I will use a sample template. If you already have a template, that's fine. I'll just pick one of the templates from the list. Let's say this enable Amazon Guard duty. So you can see this is the S3 URL, and I can actually view that in the designer. This is the Cloudformation template URL. Now I'll click next. I'll give it a name. I'll just say test. Right. Master ID. I'm not going to create this anyways, but I just want to show you how to do this. Okay, and I'll click next. All right, this is the option that I want to get your attention to. There's a set deployment options. Okay, I can set the deployment targets. So I can say, okay, deploy to AWS organization, or I can deploy to AWS organization units. So in this case, I'll select deploy to the organization. If I select this one, then I can add the OU ID. And let's say I want to deploy it to the entire organization. Okay, automatic deployment enabled, and so on. And you can specify a particular region. If I want to enable this AWS Guard duty, or you can pick all the region. And for how many accounts do you want to concurrently deploy this Cloudformation stack? So you can define that, and the failure tolerance. Let's say there are 10 AWS accounts in our organization. I don't mind, let's say, one account getting there's a failure code when deploying this particular AWS Cloudformation stack. Or you can just define 0. That means if at least one of the accounts has a failure, then the Cloudformation StackSets deployment fails. All right, and then click next, and then I can deploy it. Okay, finally, in the last step, I can submit it, but I'm not going to do that. Alright guys, so these are the demos I wanted to show you in terms of AWS organization lesson. Now finally, I'll go back to my slides. There are a couple of things I wanted to emphasize here. So we stopped here at the allow list example in the slides. There are 2 more slides with some points to remember. Let's quickly go over that. So because this will be useful if you are taking the exam. Yeah, there's one point that you should remember, that in the all feature mode, this you already know, and I mentioned this already. It includes both consolidated billing features as well as SCP. If it's the consolidated billing mode, it's only the consolidated billing mode, right? And if you activate all feature mode, then you cannot go back to the consolidated billing mode, guys. So this is something you should remember. And we discussed this as well. So if you invite an existing account, they must approve the master account request in order to activate all feature mode for those accounts. Otherwise, that won't happen. And this is a very important thing, guys. You must remember that the SCPs do not apply to the master account. Okay. We can apply SCP to any other organizational units or AWS accounts, but it do not apply to the master account. And this is one good reason why you should avoid creating AWS resources in the master account, because you don't have any control over, you can't enforce any policies. So make sure you remember this when you are going to the exam. And finally, let's go to the last slide. We can create cross-account roles to administrate other accounts, right? For that, you can use StackSets. We already saw that, we can deploy any Cloudformation stacks. That could be deploying IAM roles or enabling different AWS services or whatever, right? You can deploy to multiple AWS accounts in your AWS organization through StackSets. And this also we saw it in demo. We can share reserved instances and saving plan discounts with all the accounts in the organization to reduce cost. And in fact, if the master account turned off sharing, that means RI sharing, then they are not shared with other member accounts. So now we can put it to the disable list. If that is added, then those discounts won't be shared with those corresponding accounts. And finally, we can define tag policies and backup policies to standardize tags and backup policies across our member accounts in the organization. We already saw the tag policies, and similarly, we can have backup policies to standardize our backup frequencies and across all our storage. It could be RDS, DynamoDB, EBS, and so on. Okay, guys, so these are the points that you should remember. And yeah, I think this is it. Thank you very much for joining with me in this long video. I hope this might be helpful to you guys. And again, I just wanted to focus on the demos mostly. Yeah, then thanks a lot for watching, guys. I'll see you in another video.